In Military Matters this morning, the Vietnam War is remembered for many things. Most people think of the anti-war protests that gained national attention, but what is often left out of the history books is that some soldiers were also opposed to the war, calling it unjust and criminal. And then there's the little-known story of the Fort Hood 43. They're a group of black GIs who risked everything and said no to being used as riot control against their own people. Texas Today's Barry Roy has spent a year looking into this story. And Barry, you've talked to people who say this group of men are heroes who need to be remembered.
Yeah, the story of the Fort Hood 43 takes place during a time of a lot of civil unrest in this country and in the shadow of the death of Martin Luther King Jr. as well. So in the midst of all this political anger and this anti-war anger that was happening, there was the opportunity for them to be deployed to Chicago to fight against their own Americans. They refused to do that, and they refused to do that even in the face of some abuse.
What happened to that other picture?
They say an image is worth 1,000 words.
Back to Fort Hood in the march.
For Vietnam veteran Alan Pogue.
The soldiers and their supporters are still on the sidewalk, and there are the police.
I was on the staff of the Oleo Strut during that time.
And for David Zeiger, those images still resonate. And tell of a history they both say is largely forgotten.
You must understand that I like being a Green Beret.
Zeiger, who wrote and directed the documentary Sir No Sir, witnessed the growing soldier opposition to the Vietnam War.
This was not a war to be proud of. This was not a righteous war. This was a war in which the United States was essentially trying to spread its empire at the cost of the Vietnamese people.
While they were offering the Band-Aids of helping to cure a few cases of impetigo, they were bombing the hell out of the villages.
Here I am in front of one of these, what we call Huey helicopters. There I am.
Pogue deployed to Vietnam both as a chaplain's assistant and as a medic.
A lot of the soldiers didn't support this war either. And so it wasn't clear-cut. It wasn't this way or that way. It was there's lots of shades of gray and lots of other opinions that weren't always being accepted.
It was obvious that I was going to be court-martialed, and a few days later I got the court-martial notice.
And while connected, this isn't a story about what happened in Vietnam.
Arvin used the old-fashioned methods of interrogation, force, torture. That was pretty common practice.
Or a country spiraling in turmoil and unrest.
In the summer of 1968, Army and National Guard troops were sent into American cities as thousands of black people rioted following the assassination of Martin Luther King. That spring, troops were used against anti-war demonstrators at the Pentagon.
Hey, we just come back from fighting the Vietnamese, now they want us to fight the Americans.
It's a lesser-known story about 43 black men at Fort Hood who were put in jail.
Well, they were making it clear that it was a genocidal thing that was going to go on, and how can I go and commit genocide on my people, shoot my people?
For refusing to be weaponized against their own people as riot control in Chicago.
They came at us with bayonets. I got cut, I got hit right here with a bayonet. And then every now and then, you open this formation up, and a group of MPs come in and grab a brother and take him back in the back and beat the out of him. You hear him screaming in the back, So, damn.
At Fort Hood, the political and anti-war anger continued.
1,000 GIs marched the first year right outside the base. And they told people it was off limits, and they told people that if you went there, you were going to get arrested.
Now let's see if I can find it.
More than 5 decades later, history frozen in black and white.
So many pictures.
Which Pogue believes should be at the forefront of every Texas history book.
I definitely think people should know about the Fort Hood 43. I see them as heroes. People who risked everything for a moral principle. They should be held up to be respected and not suppressed.
I think really looking at the real history of the Vietnam War and of what went on inside the military at that time is crucial.
Zeiger knows there are lessons still to be learned from 50-plus years ago.
This man didn't do me nothing. He didn't hurt me in no type of way. He didn't hurt none of my black people, none of my families. So why should I shoot him?
And he believes the Fort Hood 43 is a hero's story worth telling.
The actions that they took still hold a tremendous amount of pride and sense that they had done the right thing at a time when it was extremely difficult, and in a situation where it was extremely difficult to do the right thing, they did it. And that's a very powerful thing to carry with you all your life.
Daisha, not all 43 men, because of their actions, were sent to Chicago because they were considered to be subversives or those that were going to undermine the mission. Those that were sent to Chicago were not allowed on the streets. Again, the military and the Army did not trust which side of this fight that they stood on. Reporting live from Fort Hood, Barry Roy, 6 News.
All right, Barry, a story not many people know about. We appreciate the insight. Thank you very much.